that DLive is working, because sometimes with Restream, the DLive is a little finicky these days. Y'all see us? Okay, good. We're live. Wonderful. We have the lovely Beth Martens here today. I'm very excited. So let's go ahead and kick in the podcast back on China Zoom, which isn't as ideal, but we will deal with it today. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit record, and we will fire this up. Mr. Dr. Berlando, are you ready? Okay.
I'm good, notwithstanding technical challenges.
And boom, we're back for another episode of AlphaCast. My name is Mike Winner, and I'm here, as always, with Dr. Bear Paul Lando, coming to you live from the Smith River up here in the gorgeous state of Jefferson. We might even get a trickle of rain today, Bear. We were supposed to get 2 days of rain, and as normal, the rain gets pushed away. I didn't share this picture with you yesterday, Bear, but we literally had a jet doing a circle over our house and neighborhood, leaving a beautiful...
I took pictures of it, and I was trying not to take it personally, but I'm like, whoa, they're zooming in on my house. I've got all these pictures I want to show you too. Total circles. And then later in the day, they retraced the same exact pattern. And then it did this little bow in the air. And I'm like, those bastards, if I had anti-aircraft artillery now, they would be history, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Time to get a rocket launcher.
Well, I went outside with my high-powered laser and was shooting it in the pilot's eyes. But no, that's my plan, is to invest in the strongest laser known to man.
Well, I'm making my orgone devices right now, so we will create our own rain and not rely on them. And we've got some real deals in the works. Sorry, Mike.
I've got the flow. That's crazy.
Flow.
That's crazy. You saw that too. I actually had neighbors like tech, because I'm known as like the crazy conspiracy guy in the neighborhood. So they were sending me texts.
Oh, no. I'm working with people behind the scenes. It's an integration of Steiner and Reich, and how to work with the electronic levels that Steiner always talked about, and then combining that with the orgone understanding, and then creating devices, integrating other technologies. And I'll tell you all about it.
Cool. Dig it. Yeah. So anyways, that happened. And we're excited. And we are in full swing of spring into summer, and the farm is cranking, and the Jagulan is creeping up, and we are just having a blast up here, all things considered. We have Music and Sky that we're happy to be involved with, that is finally fully announced to the public. We have our phase 1 flyer went out yesterday. So we're excited about that. If you're interested in coming and joining like-minded folks for the 4th of July, we will be involved with this amazing camping festival gathering. I'm not really calling it a festival. It's more of a freedom gathering. And that is the weekend of July 2nd through the 4th. It's actually 4 nights in the Western Sierras here, and a beautiful place. It's a fully private area that we have. It's 220 acres to romp around in the woods. So we're very excited about that. If you're interested in more information, go to our Telegram, t.me/Alpha Vedic, to find out more information about that. We're also on Discord. You can go to alphavedic.com/Discord to find out more info that way. Those are the 2 best ways to get involved with our community. For those that are new, that are coming over from Beth's community, Alpha Vedic, we're an off-grid online co-op and farm up here, where we grow medicinals for our product line that is based on Dr. Berlando's 40+ years as a bioterrain specialist, and we are active in agriculture using permaculture principles, and also very active in the decentralized technology space with myself, working with Cordal and other projects. I'll actually be involved with the Greater Reset Summit in 2 weeks. I believe that's Derek Brose's wonderful summit where Foster Gamble is involved with that, Bear, who was our guest last week that you amazingly interviewed because I wasn't able to make it. So that was a great show. And what else? And then Bear, you should be coming out any day now on Higher Side Chats podcast, which you did with Greg, which I'm really looking forward to. One of my favorite podcasts out there. And so much going on today. We have Beth Martens, though. So that is very exciting. Beth, I've become a fan of. I actually join her live streams when I can. And I was introduced to her, I believe, when we were involved with Anarchapulco earlier this year. And had the pleasure of being interviewed by her about decentralized technology. And Bear also was interviewed by her on her show. And it's becoming we're developing a friendship here. So very happy to have her on today. Here's a great quote from Beth. "The thing you're here on Earth to do is never going to leave you alone." And that is so darn true. Quote, "My reason to be on Earth wouldn't leave me alone, not even on what I thought was my deathbed." Quote by Beth Martens. "For me, it took being diagnosed with a stage 4 lymphoma nearly 20 years ago before I surrendered to doing my life's work full time. I had been leading a double life. I was a VP in my family's firm by day and a freedom-seeking community gathering teacher and musician pursuing spiritual experiences night and on the weekends. I got so out of alignment with myself in the corporate world that I unconsciously made myself sick to get out of my obligation to my family's business. Oops. But no matter how disabled I became, my life purpose never once stopped trying to bust out of me. I'd be laying there practically in a coma, and I'd feel songs bubble up when I couldn't even sit up and hold a guitar. I'd hear messages that needed to be written down and shared when I couldn't even hold a pen. I would dream of living on a planet where communities thrived. Today, Beth helps truth lovers find their sacred purpose, be valued for their life's work, and survive the ordeals of their hero's journey. As recovering feminist, she is passionate about supporting King Heroes and hosting the King Heroes Journey podcast, highlighting leaders, entrepreneurs, movement makers, and purveyors of the truth. Visit her this is her website. Definitely worth checking out. She's got a lot of great content on there, and that's bethmartens.com. That's BETHMARTENS.com. To do a free King Hero or Merpreneur. Am I saying that right?
Perfect. Well
Merpreneur, archetype quiz to learn where you are on the path of purpose. Her new released book, Journey, a map of archetypes to find lost purpose in a sea of meaninglessness, is available on her website. So happy to have you on today, Beth. Show that book there so everyone can see. I actually,
my baby.
Wonderful, and I am actually really looking forward to reading that.
I'm in your way.
Bearlando, how's your hero's journey doing today?
It's doing great, and it's doing even better now being able to talk to Beth. It's sort of like old home week now. You know, we were fellow speakers, as Mike said, in Anarchapulco. We've been together a couple times. I get to be on your show. I'm very honored to be there, and awesome to have you here today. So thank you so much. Great to have you. So you've been on quite a journey, and it's indeed a hero's journey. And, I have a little experience with working with people, many people in the past that were in the same exact situation that you were in. And, the more experience I had in my business, I realized that this thing we call disease is something totally different than what I learned in medical training. And, very quickly I came to the conclusion that, as Albert Schweitzer once said, who I'm a big fan of, by the way, I've got a backstory on him I'll share someday. But, he coined the term the inner physician. And it's true. Healing can only come from inside. It doesn't come from a doctor. It doesn't come from a pill. We can use natural modalities to help the journey, ease the journey, we'll say, to help align you, in certain ways. but still nobody can heal somebody else. People would come to me very often, referred by other doctors when everybody else had given up. And first thing I tell people is, well, I've never cured a single person from cancer or anything else. It's none of my business. And it's beyond any doctor or healer's capacity. So, of course, what some physicians or practitioners bring to the table is a belief system through experience, firsthand interaction, watching heroes make the inner decision that, wow, what have I got to lose? I'm just going to do this thing. And they stop listening to doctors. They stop listening to diagnoses. They burn their label that they got, from the doctor's office, and then they just go for it. You're one of those amazing individuals. And, when people would come to me, the second thing I tell them is that, you really don't even need me in the first place. But, I have witnessed a lot of people do exactly what you're intending to do. So I believe I understand. And then, of course, that does create a bit of an energetic field that would help boost them in their journey. And then we'd use our technologies to, help them put things right. But nothing could possibly work that I could do or anybody could do unless they made that decision. And when I witness these people heroically make that decision, do this journey, facing what everybody around them is telling them is their sure demise, and then they just go for it. I was just in awe of people like yourself that did it. And that's how I learned. And, a lot of times you hear of doctor types that have some success with certain conditions. And then, of course, they get all the credit, which is a bunch of nonsense. The true heroes are the people that tap into their inner self and just jump in with both feet and never look back. And then I think what we want to hear from you today is, you find out in hindsight or even during the process that there's a whole different purpose for why that condition was initiated in the first place, to get you back online with what you're here to do in the first place. So I love to, I know a little bit about, what you went through and where it led you to today. So we'd all love to hear in your own words how it realigned you.
Thank you so much for having me, you guys. I'm really honored to be here. Huge fans of both of you, and the interview that I've done individually with you is well worth checking out. Absolutely. So yeah, it has been quite a journey. I loved hearing what you said. I think it might have been to Foster Gamble, saying how people ended up on your doorstep after nothing worked, and they had completely, they've been told they were going to die. Maybe they surrendered to death, and they came with such openness to your work. I was actually the opposite. I was trying to avoid Western medicine like the plague. I knew too much about it at that point, and I was scared of it. So I thought, okay, well, let's do everything possible. I wanted to get a natural cure. So I worked from a number of different angles, variety of from the naturopath to energy workers, and went raw vegan. And you're right, everything contributed. But at the end of 3 years, and after a second diagnosis, when they say that I'm not going to live without a stem cell transplant, and half the people die doing that, it was a real crossroads for me. And I saw, okay, well, I've been doing everything, quote unquote, right for 3 years, and here I am losing my life. So something's not working. And it's just what you said, Bear, that I realized it was me. I had to do it. And so by assuming responsibility, I wanted to, there's so many different parties and factors that I wanted to blame for being sick, right? I'd been in the corporate world. It's a very unhealthy environment. It's downright evil, as I think we all know at this point. I didn't know how evil. I just felt it. I just didn't have the evidence for it. The food poisoning, the water poisoning, the air poisoning, just the stress of being a slave in society that has to work for basic life that never, ever made sense to me. I think it probably doesn't to anybody. So all of the, I could just name you 100 reasons or more why I was sick. But when it came to responsibility, I knew there was only one answer to that question, and it came down to me. And what am I doing? I was extremely lucky or fortunate. I was just open to the breadcrumbs. Okay, and by facing that possibility that I was going to die, I was trying to weigh, like, am I going to do the stem cell transplant that takes a year to recover from, and it's mostly in isolation, very severe. I actually, my brother-in-law died of that a few years after. I ended up turning it down. And the basis for being able to turn down that stem cell transplant, which everybody, my sister would literally call me at 4 a.m. and at 4 in the morning and go like, Beth, you're going to die. You're going to die. And I'm like, okay, thanks for your help. I'll just go back to sleep now. But the decision came down to the great fortune that Carolyn Myss had published that exact moment, a book called The Sacred Contracts. And I had been following her work for the whole 3 years already and found a lot of what I thought to be remedy and self-knowledge in that. So I just grabbed the book. I didn't know what it was about. I began to read it, and it's like, oh, archetypes, what I had studied about in university, only on an academic level, never went deep into it in any way. And then within, I swear, 5 minutes, I was able to identify the one archetype that was sucking the life out of me. That it's the rebel. I also kind of call it mermaid, which is where merpreneur comes from. That's a whole other kind of story. So, seeing myself as the rebel without a cause and fighting all of the wrong things, mostly myself. All of my energy that I would have used to heal was tied up in that suppression, right? I grew up and I never fit in. My first word was no. I was considered a troublemaker. I ran away several times as a teenager. I spent a night in jail. Just was not going to stand for people powering over me and making no sense whatsoever. So I wasn't quite so righteous. I would pretend to be righteous, but really just fighting in every direction, not having any understanding exactly what I was fighting for or who I was and what my purpose was. So the whole thing culminated. I went to India 8 times searching for myself and studied with a white bearded guru on a mountain. That didn't, the moment I was diagnosed with cancer, he was diagnosed as a pedophile. Sorry for saying that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Kind of crazy. Firsthand stories came out by lots of people. So then I was a kite without a string, and I'm just flying, and I'm responsible for myself, I realize. So when I got sick, it was a full stop. It gave me permission. Unfortunately, I should have, now I'm a stand for people to make those decisions much sooner when you get, because I had lots of warning signs and had a great big lump in my neck. And I was not well. My energy was terrible, but I was actually equally driven by my purpose as I was to earn a living and be part of my family's business. I felt obligated to help them after the recession of the 90s really kicked their butt. And so I did have this double life like you were reading. I almost wanted to cry when you read my bio. It's like, oh, it's sad. And so, the severe diagnosis was what I needed. It was the board in the face to say, Beth, this is not your path. You have to leave. So, never went back to my office. My father wanted me to work through the whole illness because in his mind, work was purpose. And if I didn't work, then I was purposeless. So that's actually kind of true for King heroes. The work is much more central to the purpose, not that it's not to a woman. It's just a different mix of energies there in the masculine, feminine archetypes. But so I never returned and fought for my life for the 3 years. Once I discovered the archetype that was so out of alignment, I tweaked it practically overnight. And next thing you know, I went from dying to living against the odds. Within, 3 or 4 months, I was actually back in the hospital where I'd received all the chemotherapy, this time playing music for other patients that were receiving treatments. I had almost no hair. Yeah, I got hired. It was like, oh, okay. And it was a good test of how much I had healed from the PTSD of the whole experience, because I used to hit the front door of that hospital and I would begin to get sick from that, or I would even just think of going there. Little wave now, I must have some of that left over. But yeah, I was able to go in and play for people. I remember meeting my oncologist one day. He just was walking right by me, didn't recognize me. I went running after him and said, like, "Hey, I didn't die." Write about this in my book as well. And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "You don't remember me?" He said, "Yeah, I do." I'm like, "Oh, okay." It was just like, wow, you don't care, or you're stunned.
Or he's
And
pissed. He's pissed. He's like,
yeah, because he was wrong, I guess.
yeah.
And then, as it turned out, probably 6 months later, he committed suicide. I don't know. I don't know if it had anything to do with me, or just his
Wow.
terrible, terrible experience as a doctor. That when you really can't help people, when you're just cutting and burning, and the vast majority of people don't get out alive. They just get more and more sick. So that
So
was
I
the
guess
beginning.
it's a rough blow when a doctor finds out he's not God after all, huh?
Something like that. Yeah, he was a tortured soul. Definitely a bad cop. He would scare me into all of the, I did 11 months straight chemotherapy in the first rounds. The second time I was every day for 5 weeks in chemo, throwing the book at me. I'm not blaming him. He's just using the tools that he had. But it's all so deadly. Really evil technology going on there.
I would say that some of those practitioners are demonic though, and that's why they're there. Not saying all oncologists are. My wife was an oncology nurse for years, and that was tough. Those were tough years, but
Mhm.
you see it. Some of those practitioners, or not even, I don't even like calling them practitioners, right? They're like mad scientists or something, but they're there for a reason. They're psychopaths. I
Or
hate
they
to say
or
it.
they yeah, or they turn into one, right? If they
Hmm.
come in with the good heart, which I think is common, they want to help people. But the typical thing I've known since I was a kid is that people get into these helping professions because they themselves are broken. And in the medical world, there's absolutely no requirement that you do your own healing.
Oh yeah.
So they just go deeper and deeper into suppression of their own thing, and then end up with a big drug problem or the suicide or some kind of misery.
I mean, it's a great representation of the materialism that dominates this realm right now. It's like this total lack of any self-understanding or reflexivity with these doctors. Bear and I have talked about this on the podcast so many times. You roll up to a hospital and you see the nurses and doctors outside having a smoke break, right? And you're like, what
Oh,
the hell
Yeah.
is the disconnect here?
And when I worked in emergency services, let's just, worked with a lot of the staff there. Let's just say some of the supplies that had to do with, maybe certain kinds of local anesthetics and pain reduction medications seem to just fly off the shelves amongst the staff themselves, so they all had the biggest drug problems because they could get the good stuff. So Beth,
mhm.
this thing of purpose, I think is really key. And I think we can see it in the larger society today. All of us, every single one of us, we've put a lot of energy, we'll say, and things in motion for many embodiments. And then when we, hop into another simulation, there's certain accumulations that will really give us talents or, gifts that we can give to the world, and also certain things we still need to deal with. And and that really gets back, the first part, those gifts that each one of us have, that taps into our creativity, our real divinity. And when that is stifled, it creates a great degree of frustration, and it's the beginning of all of our problems, I think. And what you see today is a lot of people just sitting home, behind the keyboards and smoking weed and not working or fulfilling their purpose. And you see a lot of frustration out there. So you're one of those people that, obviously you weren't destined to just remain stifled forever. And you created a situation that allowed you to tap in and get back in alignment. So maybe talk a little bit about the services, and just your, I don't know what terminology is best, the coaching, the teaching that you do with your clients, to help them realign like you did, and maybe not have to create a real intense situation first, just to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm a stand for. It doesn't have to become a big emergency before you start making
Mm-hmm.
choices like that. And one of the things that happened to me in the whole 3 years of fighting for my life is that I had what I consider to be a near-death experience, not a light at the end of the tunnel kind of a thing, none of that typical stuff, but it was the end of me. My body was functionless. I couldn't even sit up. I couldn't hold anything. Very severe reactions to all that chemo that I was going through. And I could feel the life force draining out of my body. And I thought, okay, time to call in some help again, like I usually do. And I just said to myself, not this time. I'm not going to do that. I'm making myself cry here. And then so I let go and I surrendered. It's kind of like what you were talking about, Bear, that when you let go is really when the biggest breakthroughs go. So I just happened. So I said, okay, death, you can have me. And I sunk into this blackness. And I swear in about 10 seconds, it wasn't black at all. And this overwhelming joy came over me. And I'm like, huh? What's going on here? This doesn't seem like death at all. And so I had some major revelations in that moment, and it really was about purpose and seeing that we all came here for a reason, and that if I didn't live through the ordeal that I was going through and fulfill on my purpose now, I was just going to have to come back and do it all over again. So I realized it was a binding contract. So then I also realized that my contract was not really about me. It's very easy to go through life thinking that it's just about you. We tend to be very ego-centered, which is not inherently a problem, but so I saw that not only was I here to do something, but it was intimately tied with my people who I didn't know yet. And is like, okay, take in that information. And the whole thing was so profound for me. It actually sent me into remission the first time. So that was I knew at that point I wasn't sick anymore with cancer. I knew the difference between how cancer feels and how the sickness of chemo feels. And the cancer sickness was utterly gone. Tests proved it. I still couldn't recover after 18 months, but back to that realization that, okay, you're here for something. I already knew it. I was already leading that double life and very aggressively pursuing the things I was passionate about and gifted at. And then being in this business world, which was also related. So that was another hard part about it, because it is very related to my purpose to bring value to the world, compared to the banks and the governments and all of those institutions that all they do is suck the value out of society. I knew we were here to bring it, and that business is a good path and people should be rewarded. And I love that you guys have a good business in the back end. You have to do that. Otherwise you couldn't do what you do for us at little or no charge. Often here we are at no charge. And so I liked business, and I was, since I was 10 years old, I was working in my parents' marketing firm, and I was a business geek and nerd already. But then by going through this experience of what I considered to be dying, I realized, oh, okay, I can do this in another context with my people, and how key, purpose. To me, purpose and connection are almost the same thing, because you cannot have one without the other. And I've spent my whole entire life, refining who are my people, both from a business perspective, but also very much from that purpose side. And frankly, thanks to the pandemic, now I'm 100% clear who my people are, and they're really coming in the door. I've been in business for myself for 20 years since surviving, and it's gone well. I've worked my butt off because I had to, had a baby in the process. I wasn't supposed to be able to get pregnant, and after all of that chemotherapy, but all of a sudden I wanted to have a baby. I was pregnant in about 5 minutes, and there it came. So the business side of things has always been forward for me, and I love to pass that on to people, how they can turn their passions and talents and interests, ultimately their purpose, into a business. Because if you're stuck like I was, trying to do it part-time on the side and stealing time here out of your sleep and out of your eating time, and never mind enjoying life, because that's a big part of it, then you're always going to feel split. So I knew that I had to create a business and a life that were really the same, not having a personal life and a professional life that they merged, they married and became the same thing. So I get no end of joy and pleasure out of my work. I won't pretend that there's a lot of stuff that I don't love, and there's hardship and there's struggle and there's disappointment, wins and losses and all the ups and downs. But for example, doing what we're doing right now, I know I'm going to feel like $1 million after. Right. If I'm low energy going
Yeah.
into a coaching call or an interview on the King Heroes Journey podcast, or, whatever it is, it's life giving. And that's the sign that you are in alignment with that purpose. So
That's a great observation. I'm glad you mentioned that. Early on in my work, I would, have very exhausting days when I was just kind of learning the ropes, and I'd see a lot of people every single day. And then something shifted, a while later, and then I could go, into the clinic kind of low energy, and maybe I'm not up for this day, but I'd always feel way better when I left, because I learned how to relieve the burden from myself, with the understanding that no, I it's not up to me to do anything. It's just about to hold the space for people. And then to do that, you have to bring in other energetics that, heal yourself in the process. So it's a wonderful thing. I'd like to back up just a little bit. I think it's important while we're on this topic here, and I want to get back into what you're saying and the ramifications, within a larger context, and all the things that we're up against these days. But maybe we could talk a little bit about the anatomy of disease, because of course, where medicine is now, it's really in a superstitious Maya that keeps you believing that this is you, this biology, and your problem is here, and that you're basically a victim of it. And it's so farcical and it's so dark ages, it's unimaginable. And so, in other areas of like wave physics that we always talk about, when you're trying to create technologies and things, and you realize there's all these levels of energetics, and then if you go at the lowest level and intervene there, you create chaos. And that's exactly what you're doing with conventional medicine these days. However, when you understand how everything starts at these more refined levels and then filters down into the level where we think the problem is, now we're understanding how to intervene at those levels. And what we're doing, at those creative levels, is creating coherence instead of chaos. And then the coherence then will filter down on the ground. So, that's what you experience on the ground. So what we have to understand is, what is this thing that we call disease? It's really not what we think it is at all. And I related a couple times on, our episodes in the past. I had one issue that kind of brought me to my knees years back, and some people call it Lyme. I have a little bit of a different take on it, but it did humble me greatly. And so I had to kind of go into some space and walk my talk a little bit. And what I was able to see in the process is literally an electronic overlay. And in that overlay, I could distinguish very easily in that space the difference between what, maybe I thought was a problem with my neurology versus the electronics that were actually happening. And then a funny thing happened when I kind of saw that firsthand. The first thing I would do is have a sense of elation that, the problem here is history. But then what I came to conclude was that every time that I kind of went back there, even in a positive mode of, it's better now, then boom, it would take me back into that consciousness and symptoms would come back like that. So it took for myself a great deal of perseverance and focus to just just focus on the where the overlay was coming from, stay there only, don't even pay attention to the physicality of it. And then in a short time, boom, it lifted, the electronics were shattered, the realignment happened with what my original divine pattern is that we all have. And also, I'll let you comment on that, but I'm also glad to see that you're employing purring therapy there.
Yeah, he's on every stream. So this is Ocean, might be the Beth and Ocean show. Okay. Yeah. No, it's fascinating because we are all brainwashed, of course. Certainly, I grew up with medical people, right? I had aunts and uncles and cousins and you name it. They were doctors and nurses and medical administrators. So they were really, really intense into that medical model. And in fact, that's how I think I got sick in the first place, that I got scared of cancer early on in my life. I heard them talking about it. They couldn't even say the word cancer. They would say this, it was the big C, right? So that's how scary it was. You couldn't even say the word. And then when I got sick, there was a full belief in germ theory. And, that's always the big question. Like, why am I so sick? Why am I losing my life? Why am I going to die? That was total mystery. I couldn't figure it out. And you go searching and then, things can make sense. At the germ theory, someone said like, oh yeah, the cold sore virus, it's a precursor to cancer. And so that makes a little bit of logic, but there's no breakthrough. Right. So making sense of it didn't satisfy, didn't shift anything for me. And then it's the same thing they've done with the pandemic, is that the enemy is not only out there coming for you, it's in here. Right. So you've got that evil thing and never mind the whole new age interpretation of disease, sending you on a whole other rabbit hole. And, I remember the confusion about like, should I pay attention to this tumor? Should I distract away from this tumor? Or, they're like, don't feed the wolf, that, don't feed the wolf. So it's like, oh, don't think about it. But then you only think about it. And I was actually very fortunate because I had been making those trips to India and was a very, ardent meditator. I took my spiritual life very seriously. I listened to everything that Guru told me to do, and I actually made good on it. I spent 8 years with a lot of practice under my belt at that point. So I was able to self-reflect and go inside and ask deep questions like that. But the whole paradigm really didn't shift for me. It was still right up until the end. It was about killing that cancer so I could live, rather than seeing the terrain, thing. Even it's been this year, you talking, Bear, about cancer, that I had an epiphany again, because I've come to see it with, say, microbes and all that kind of thing. But of course, cancer is the answer to the terrain that isn't healthy, and it's not my enemy. It's actually my assistant. It's saying, okay, here, I'm helping you. And this is how it looks. And yeah, you're sick and miserable, but that's what balance looks like right now. So I have a very, very different perspective. And for me, it was really the psychic, emotional, spiritual stuff that was that breakthrough, like you're describing as well, that it was seeing myself. And, I never did put up a shingle saying, yeah, I can help you heal of cancer, even though I have probably 1,000 tips now about what to eat and supplements to take and all kinds of things. You name it. I got ozone therapy right in my veins, and, photophoresis, UV, like they would take my blood and UV radiate it and give it back to me on the other side. And endless supplements and herbs and high powered stuff. I spent probably $50,000, went into really severe debt. For me, that was very severe. And it was just this mystery. But when I saw how I was suppressing a really important part of myself by I was trying to actually be a good person. I had been this badass and running away and getting in trouble, and I wanted to turn around and redeem myself. That's why I was having a normal life, and I was trying to, date normal people, and I was I had a normal house and a normal car, and I was just trying to not be the rebel. But in the process, I suppressed that part of myself, and it won't stand for it. It was trying to get my attention, and it was through the illness. It's like, oh, I didn't get your attention just by a little lump in your neck. Let's see if we give you a lump in your neck and total insomnia. And and then feeling sick every day, and I'd have the tiniest little sip of wine or something, which I never did drink much, but just casually out and about, and my whole body would go into conniptions on one taste of alcohol. That was a real symptom of the lymphoma that I had. And so all of these signs ramped up until finally the end came, like I described before. But all of your energy is mostly tied up in that unconscious. So it became an adventure after that. Even just turning the corner was for me just the beginning of that process of refriending my body, my purpose, and life on Earth. I don't know how to even describe that anymore from flat Earth perspective. But so then I became a student of energy. And I learned to recognize the difference between an energy loss and an energy gain. And that's not as simple as it sounds, because we have things like adrenaline and dopamine, the fake or pseudo energy that I talk about. And it's very convincing. All of a sudden you feel high and happy and you're bouncing off the wall, but it's all adrenaline, and you're headed for a time when you have to rebalance, and you'll go lower than you were. I think you guys get what I'm saying here. But what is true energy? And it really, it's quite simple. Now everybody has to know this for themselves. It's not information that I'm giving, but it is your God self, right? Go right to the source. There's no middleman there. And if you plug into your own source like that, that's where you gain clarity. You see where you're stuck. You see the difference between moving in stuck energy, or life growing or life diminishing. And I developed enough discrimination to see where things, to this day, I'm still dealing with the same demon. The demon left me, and as far as I can tell, it's going to be the lifelong. These are the demons I signed up with because they're an exact match to my purpose, right? I called these demons in, but you can get to a place where they are much more subtle, right? I don't really have to get noticeably ill anymore. I'll get tiny little signs, and it's like, oh, okay, something needs to shift and change here, and I can react to it when it's not so big. But that so that rebel that I was needed to come forward. I couldn't just cut it off at the head and say, you're done, you're out of here, you got me in trouble, and now I'm going on with my life. No, it's like, this is an integral part of how. Now I can't prove any of this stuff, but I do see myself having this moment of like, okay, I'm going in again, and what do I need on this mission? I'm going to pull in some rebel, and I'm going to pull in some lover, and I'm going to pull in some alchemist, and I'm going to pull in some king archetype, which I thought was the queen, but it's not. Definitely not feminine. So just here's all my tools, and the lenses through which God energy can come through. If we start, for example, talking about archetypes now, for anybody who hasn't looked into my work, I take full license on this stuff. If I can't find it in here, I can't treat it to be true. So I'm a person that will do all of my work inside first, and then I'm going to go out and check and see, is it a match with anything at all? And oh, here's some parallels, and that's not me. But I did notice that practically everybody in the archetype world is doing that, so I gave myself permission as well. And so I don't say Carl Jung and I had a talk today. We would disagree about what archetypes fundamentally are. To me, they are not alive. They are not creatures. They're not like demons. They're not something, and I made the mistake many years already to call on archetypes as if they were an entity. And from what I can gather, all you get when you do that are entities. You make holes in your system for stuff to come in. And I came full circle and saw no, archetypes really are a lens through which God energy shines, and that is what makes the infinite variety in our, there's no two people ever in all time that are the same. Even the identical twins have different psychological and emotional makeups and spiritual inclinations, right? It's amazing how God could every spring come up with a brand new version of the natural world, just, insatiable variety. And so that's what you're dealing with now. It's not chaos. I think you said it earlier, Bear, that we're always being bombarded with chaos. They throw, whether it's scalar waves or the chemicals at us, confusion, impossible circumstances to make us feel like the world is chaos. Oh, anybody could get sick anytime. Even a healthy person could pass on this illness, and then we're all in a state of chaos, thinking that the world is chaotic and we need some outside structure to come in and give us that structure, is what I meant to say. Now, that couldn't be further from the truth. The archetypes reveal that the world we live in is highly ordered, right? At every level. Not just the archetypes are incredibly consistent and literally scripted and reliable, and patterns that can be memorized and recognized, but even the emotional world, there's a scale like music, and it goes up and it goes down, and you can play it like an instrument, right? So many levels, the elements that are so consistent. There's only 5 of them, and yet we got this huge variety of things going on. So by following the order, including at the level of archetypes, I teach clients and students, for example, to memorize the signature vibration of feelings. We think we know what they feel like, and you do, but like, memorize the vibration. What's actually happening at the energetic level here? It has a signature stamp on it, and if you start to see what it is, then you're way ahead of the game. Same with all of the unconscious programming, which you can talk about archetype shadows. So archetypes are always in 2 realms at the same time. You're either aware of them as a tool and energy that you can use to support your life and your mission, or they are in the unconscious, acting like an enemy against your life and your mission, not because there's any cruelty built in. It's just trying to get your attention. And unfortunately, good things don't really get our attention. It's only the mishaps. So then archetypes are very powerful for pointing out where you're stuck. They can be that starting point, like, oh my gosh, I hear the script of the alchemist that's grumpy about all of the bullshit. Can I swear on your podcast?
Sure,
By
why
the
not?
way,
You can say whatever you want.
That's right. Yeah, the bullshit that's going on out there, and then it would point to, oh well, that's bringing up a program in me that tells me no matter what I do, I can't win. And oh, okay, well, I'm going to study that vibration and see, is that really true? And then I can make a new decision. No, actually, I don't want to hold on to that program. I want freedom. I don't want to be a slave to my fear. I want to be a slave to my purpose. Actually, if I have to be a slave on slave earth, if that's the whole Gnostic view of it, which I don't really believe anymore, but that's how I played my way out of it. And so that's why the archetypes are so beautiful. They are about the pattern that's already there in nature. You're not creating or inventing anything, yet through it you become the creator and the inventor, making life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you can't convince me that I'm a slave. I feel totally free when I'm creating.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I think of archetypes as more role models and, just kind of characters, and all characters have their strengths and their challenges. So you kind of tune in to the perfect archetype at the time that's going to give you those attributes to model your behavior. And I don't know if that's exactly your take, but the human body, as we think of it, is the most marvelous advanced biofeedback technology imaginable. And when you really learn how to play that instrument and use it, it's going to tell you what you need every single moment. And, going back to those other, levels, where true coherence already exists, the body tells you when those layers are experiencing overlays and, what to do about them. And I like to just, at the end of every day, think of the day as a ledger sheet. How many double plus good thoughts and emotions did I have versus, the opposite. And it's really that simple. And, I think the more we get to use the body as a tool rather than think of it as something that has any power over us in the first place, because we're the ones that are creating it every single moment in the first place. It just gets down to real simple physics, because, you're either creating, with our thoughts and emotions and beliefs, that kind of aligning with that original golden mean kind of energy, or else we're creating the overlays that are preventing that from coming in. And it's pretty basic stuff, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And I like what you say about overlay. It reminds me of my StreamYard, when I can put an image on top of everything and you don't see anything behind it, literally. And that's how the programming in the unconscious works. It is completely opaque. You cannot see through it. I've proved it to myself over and over again, how a certain program that's associated with one or more archetypes, and it, by all of my senses, it feels true that, I'll use that can't win program again. That's been one that I've worked with my whole entire life at a variety of levels. And when it feels like I can't win, it just yep, I have all the evidence for it. I got past evidence. I've got current circumstances. It just seems true. I feel like that. I'm identified with it because it's a vibration that I've carried the whole life. So I think it to be me. But when I challenge that and I say, like, is that really true? If you use your discrimination and ask yourself that you can't win, well, it's like, well, actually, it's not true. Could I let go of what's not true? And all of a sudden, it's like somebody pulled the curtains open, and the light shines brighter, and color is more vibrant, and all of a sudden, there's clarity about not how I can win, because that's actually two sides of a program. Winning is not even the question at the end of the day. When you let that program go, it's not about winning at all. It's presence and being alive and reacting and responding to your environment, interacting with it for the joy, actually, of it. That's really deep down what I discovered in myself. So there's a lot of places that you can get lost in, and then there's a lot of places to get found in, and those two actions of getting lost and found are actually both necessary. They create a rub, right? It's like churning milk into butter. That, remembering, forgetting. And that's one of my missions with teaching people about the hero's journey, to never get defeated when they feel like they are starting over or beginning again. Like, oh, I thought I knew something, and here I am just feeling like a little kid, all lost and confused. But that's, the hero's journey, the archetypes, they work in spirals, not just a circle of a journey and then you're done. It has what appears to be an endless, infinite ability to move up and also down infinitely. So no end to both of those.
It's fractal in that way, like nature.
Exactly.
So Jung would say that this was all collective unconscious, and these archetypes are like egregores or something, right? Like they have their own consciousness to them. What you're saying is this is more like God's divine matrix or divine scaffolding for us.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. And so I like to think of things always in design wise and coding and stuff, so, and Bear and I talk a lot about the idea of this being a simulation. And are there new archetypes that can unfold or is this kind of preset, and have you kind of really lined all those out?
I believe that archetypes can be created. We are creative beings, so that we always hold that capacity as the God spark to create whatever it is. And there was never a tech geek archetype, 25 years ago, for example, and now you can see them coming a mile away. They're like, oh, I know they spend all their time in their basement in front of Wi-Fi, working through stuff. So yes, we can create, and we can also reclaim. Archetypes end up very hijacked, weaponized, literally weaponized against us. I'm currently doing a course called Primal Power, and unlike my book, which is the archetypes of the hero's journey and the stages and phases that you go through, the primal archetypes are there at every stage of the hero's journey. Very confronting, because they are the precipice between life and death, where you get very confronted about that basic idea that you won't survive, which is the Achilles heel of all of humanity right now, because as long as we fear death, we are controllable. That's the basic bottom line. If you can scare somebody, you can make them do something out of fear. Now that's not the only option. There's another option. You can also do stuff out of love. So that's the whole work, is to help people to detox the fear, to deprogram the mechanism of fear that is just really an old habit. And there's primary programs that operate. They're highly predictable. They're there, and if you ask questions and make a new agreement with yourself, you can let that stuff go. It's actually really interesting to watch, because people who are super spiritual don't like it. There's no off ramp. There's no way to go sideways and get lost. It's just between you and your program. It's no longer outside circumstances that you're wrestling with. And it's very confronting. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to die, because that's what the programming not only tells you you're going to die, but it's the feeling of dying, which I know now. And the feeling of dying is not death. That's a big lie. And it's actually artificial intelligence. So you never have to feel like you're dealing with an enemy. It's just your own energy that you tacitly agreed to. I'm very into the law these days, as I know many people are. It is a tacit agreement to operate a program as a loop. It just goes in circles, and all it knows is that you're going to die. Nobody loves you. You're not in control. You're not connected to anybody. And we need to learn discrimination and see, like, why am I taking instructions from my own AI program that I created? Kind of backwards. So you turn into the king, and you learn to be the one who's asking the questions, and having that clarity, like, okay, this is, I'm sinking a lot of energy into running this AI day after day after day, moment to moment, even right through my sleep. I'm running it, and now I can choose again and just say that, oh, poor thing, you're suffering. Come here, I'll give you a hug, and I've got this handled. You don't have to look after me. I'll take care of you. Kind of personifying it, but at the end of the day, it's all just you. I don't know if that answered your question at all.
And it really gets into the whole concept of sovereignty. In America, forgive me, because I know there's 3 Americas, Canada, South America. So I am always inclusive in that, because they are meant to be not in a political barrier sort of, artifice, but, it is a collected landmass and energetic. But in the US, we'll say this was created as a republic, where we are all considered sovereigns, but without subjects. And of course, our whole model of government that actually followed natural law is very subverted these days, where sovereignty and sovereigns are considered, kind of like a bad thing, because, oh, you don't care about the collective, and who do you think you are to not have to obey and, pay your fair share and all these sorts of things. But, in early on, in my study of homeopathy, I learned about miasms, which of course are collective electronic overlays, we'll say. And we identify certain overlays, miasms, that are the origins of all what we consider disease in the physical body. And one of them is the cancer miasm. And the cancer miasm historically was created at a time in the Atlantean civilization, where certain domineering individuals, just a minority of people, created, this whole system where everybody else was subservient. Now, what happened is the larger collective failed to stand up for themselves and just allowed that to happen. Of course, it ended up in the demise of the entire continent eventually. But in the meantime, it created this electronic overlay or cancer miasm that we're still working out in our collective. And when you have the inability to draw your line in the sand, or you think you have no right, then of course, any microscopic event that might even be a beneficial pre-programmed design of your body to heal you, then your belief system allows these otherwise insignificant events to start running the show. It's like the lunatics running the asylum. And so that's the beginning of all of our problems. And so what I would always like to really lead people to in my work was the understanding that, look, it all begins there. You have to reclaim your sovereignty. You owe no allegiance or authority to anybody but yourself and your creator. And of course, the oldest trick in the book is governments, mind control, institutionalized mind control, that's all it is, are constantly trying to convince us of otherwise. And that is the root of all disease. So I think, you're making some excellent points there. And maybe would you like to segue in with that as far as, where we find ourselves now in the larger picture?
For sure. Yeah. So I didn't wake up very early. I think it was starting to happen 2015, and it wasn't until my mom passed away that the veil came down. Very interesting timing to lose your parents and then wake up, because I'm sure they would have completely just gone like, Beth, you've really gone over the edge, and that's it. It's over, like the rest of my family has done now. So once you see that stuff, your brain does start to work your way through. And I have this basic knowledge, like you're saying, about freedom. I know myself to be free. I've seen myself time and time and time and time and time again. It's absolutely irrefutable. Nobody could ever talk me out of that experience, that I am free in reality. And that I love what you said, Bear, about it's between you and your creator. That is your authority. That is the highest authority. And guess what? Creator gave you that. Right. So it's not even like we're just one level down and there's God. God gave us that spark. And that's the thing that we're suffering with right now. So many people don't have a connection with that. So they don't have a connection with their purpose, which is coming direct from God. And then they walk in the world in a way that they act to be anything but free. They'll argue for their enslavement. They will act like you're trying to kill them when you try to free them, like that bird in a cage. And so this, since this last year, and when things have gone so badly sideways, which I was prepared for, luckily, thanks to people like yourself that are out there and reading the signs that are there to be seen in plain sight. So I had a little bit of preparation emotionally. I'd been through my mom's death, my dad's death, very big losses, faced my own death. So came out the other side with a new awareness of the hero's journey. And then next thing you know, had colleagues and friends and lots of you guys out there in the truth world too started going, okay, well, what can we legally do? And what about the Charter of Rights and the Constitution and all this kind of stuff? And what is sovereignty? And in Canada, we have the royalty and the Queen, and she swore the am I going to get the date right? The 1953 coronation oath that everything is hinging on. And, Canada never really did become a country. They loopholed that. So we're actually a corporation, which every country is anyway, but nobody knows Canada doesn't exist. And that, back in 1611 with the SDKV Trust, the royalty claimed ownership over absolutely everything: the land, the waters, the sea, our blood, our bones, every bit of biomass in perpetuity, moving forward. And so like they just claimed it all and created this massive fiction, which is really operates like an AI. It has life, but only the life that we give it. It has no actual structure in nature. It is an artificial structure that must be upheld on a regular basis. It must be enforced. There's no natural law inside of it at all. And so, we've been working very hard to crack the nut. I'm a baby. I'm still in diapers. Thanks to people like Crow 777. I've been interviewing Alphonse Fagiolo a couple of times and Tom Barnett. And we're just about to announce, I hope you don't mind me sharing, a Choose Freedom Law Summit with Matt Belair and myself have partnered up to put on a summit. We're both running so hard in our own directions, but we feel compelled to do this as well. I've started some interviews, and I'm going to be announcing that the signups will start tomorrow during my podcast with Catherine Austin Fitz. So she's technically the first one, even though she doesn't entirely know it in the summit, as we get our ducks in a row. Wanting to bring remedy to people and share some basic things that I've started changing out my signature on official documents like my driver's license and my passport and my son's passport. I have my registration of live birth so I can prove I'm a living woman, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. But here we go, having to prove the flesh and the bones. Learning how to speak, how to be in honor, how to have God as the authority and not listen to the grocery store clerk when she says I have to muzzle myself, or when they start coming at us heavy about the jab. We've got now the government is propagandizing here in Manitoba or China, where I live, that you should shun people who don't get the jab. Right? Like we're going to live in an era where the government recommends shunning people. Oh, fascinating. Wow. We're already way off into the technocratic totalitarian society here in Canada. We were sitting ducks, like we were joking earlier on. We're such a bunch of polite people, always apologizing for every little thing, and we just take it. And I remember people early on and going, "Oh, I think Trudeau is doing an amazing job handling this pandemic. He's the hero, right?" This, and it's like, no, he's the killer. He's a psychopath. He doesn't hold your best interest by any means. So we're busy trying to crack the code. We have the likes of Cal Washington in our zone. Very lucky. We got to spend, I couldn't believe, 5 hours with him last night. It was supposed to be a couple of hours meeting, but it just went on and on and on. Very well attended private meeting.
Oh, that's
And
great.
it was amazing, actually. No, I didn't want to stay up that late, but it was well worth it. And he's giving some information, but he hasn't cracked all the codes. He's kind of cracked it for himself, and yet lives a very inconvenient life. So he knows this is not the thing to go and promote to people. But these guys, these King heroes, are putting their heads together, looking for these solutions. People are getting some remedy, but you can also see they're getting railroaded when it comes to the legal stuff. So at the end of the day, what we have, many people say it's not going to be new to you guys, but we have a spiritual war on our hands. It's extremely tied in with the law, how to be in honor, how to be in integrity with yourself. To me, that's the same as purpose and your hero's journey. That's honor, all tied in there. And to walk that very fine razor's edge between life and death. And as Catherine Austin Fitz says, death is not the worst thing that can happen to you.
You got that right.
There's way worse,
Yep.
right? So it turns around.
Yeah, we're seeing that with the jab, right? The idea of you being put into some kind of AI stratosphere of control where you're no longer, and this is something that I've brought up to a number of channels and people that are really tapped into what you're talking about, is that this is literally changing what is known as a human. And so if they can alter what a quote unquote living man or woman is by genetically modifying us into something that is other, then potentially they can take out the natural law remedy. But because you have now wholeheartedly agreed to not even be a natural man or woman anymore by altering your genetics.
Oh, exactly. Never
Yeah.
mind the patent that they own you. Go ahead, Bear.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, it gets very simple, even in the legal work. And I've been down that road for many, many years. We had Cal on and a lot of good people, Tom Barnett, and we're going to have some of them back on ourselves, and we'll travel down that road more for our audience. But it gets down to the basics, which is the system makes assumptions. And unless we rebut those assumptions, then, we have contracted with them. And Catherine Austin Fitts actually made a good comment recently on one of my favorite shows, which is the Dark Journalist. He asked her, well, how have they gotten so much, power? How are they, how are they doing what they do? And Catherine just said, well, nobody's ever stopped them. Nobody's ever stood up to them. So now we have a whole new generation, and years back when we're traveling down these roads and going into courts and getting thrown in jail and everything all the time because, we're kind of learning the system firsthand and just seeing what the truth was and willing to take some bullets for the cause. We learned a lot, but now all of these decades later, I'm witnessing all these people just giving this information for free over the internet. We were flying all over the world, picking each other's brains and everything. And not only is it available and people really understanding what we were figuring out, but also taking it to the next level. But, it all begins, of course, internally once again, because we can have all the best paperwork in the world and so forth. But unless you own it internally and carry yourself as a sovereign, then they're going to have their way with you. So it's really not about the paperwork after all. And another little, secret for everybody is that these monsters have a code, and the code is what they believe gives them, get out of karma free sort of thing. And so they feel that as long as they notice us, even if it's on page 300 of, some bill in Congress, that has nothing to do with, where they bury it, the subject matter, or if it's in a science fiction movie or some such thing, they've noticed us. But the other thing is in all of these contracts that we sign, whether it's opening up a bank account, getting a driver's license, passport, you name it. If you read the fine print, you'll always find an option. They always leave an option there for you. And they have to do that according to their own code. And, we've uncovered a few of those, not all those, but once you find that, and then use that option that they put there for you, so they can't say, hey, we never forced you to do anything. They actually work brilliantly. But it's a lot of work for most people, too scary of a path to go down. And then, of course, most people won't even open the door because they can't believe anything we're talking about in the first place. But, this is the time where people are making a decision. Not all people are going to choose to move on, to climb the rung of octaves, however you want to look at it. Mm-hmm. And, we're just going to witness a lot of people being taken out in these coming months and years of their own volition, even though maybe at the time they don't understand they're making the choice. So Canada is quite alarming. In America, of course, they're unrolling things at breathtaking speed, same thing. But it seems like we might be a little half a step behind, what Trudeau's accomplished, who's a known pedophile, and, all that kind of stuff has been uncovered forever. But so how scary is it there? Not to make this a fear thing, but, when somebody's demanding, okay, you can't participate in anything within society unless you have the jab passport, then it's definitely inconvenient.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I honestly very naively felt like this wouldn't happen in my lifetime, maybe not my son's. And here we are, it's kind of next week. Oh, wow, here we go. And they are talking about the vaccine passport, and they've stopped us from being able to leave the country. Although that's not true. People still do it. But of course, you have to get those awful tests and the quarantines and stuff like that. Right here in Manitoba right now, personally, I've shifted. I don't care what kind of apparently there are new restrictions today. And I just act like I'm just a person and I'm living my life, because it's like you said, the loophole never closes, right? They have to leave the loophole open. For example, with masks, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, now you can't like set foot outside your house without one, but they still have exemptions. So I, um, for a while, I was not wearing masks, and I was kind of fighting the good fight, and I was getting into lots of conflict. Not really an honor at all. Very, very much still learning how to do that. And then I got very severely crushed after one day when they crushed the businesses. So the businesses crushed the people, and I was traumatized. Literally, I had PTSD, and I didn't know it until I got so, for a couple of months I was wearing those masks and ordering groceries online and doing whatever I could to get around it. And then I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm completely out of integrity with myself. I can't live with myself anymore. I would rather face whatever consequences or fines, right? They fine us $300 if we're caught without a mask in a public place, or $1,296 if you have any involvement with a march or a rally of some kind. I did go to a march last week, and there were more police than there were people that day. But it was very sad, and the surveillance was outrageous. They were looking at us from buildings with angles. You could see I was eye to eye with the high-powered lens, the photographer behind that, taking pictures of everybody. It was just like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But the thing is that at the end of the day, moving forward, and I'll just continue to act like I'm free. I was going to share one thing I was at an Acapulco, and I was coming back last year when we could still travel. I was very grateful to have gone to that event live once. And so I'm coming back, and I knew that I was going to have to face those new, what I consider to be retina scanners. They claim they're not retina scanners, but they take a picture at a very high pulsing light for at least 10 seconds. And I was dreading it because it feels like a total affront to my system. It's very uncomfortable, and I don't want to do it. And so I just got my nerve up, and I was coming through, and I said, that machine gives me a headache. I'm not going to be able to go through there. And he's like, okay, just go right up to the front then. So I go past the lineup and go up to the front, and the lady says, "Oh, thank God you came here. I'm going to lose my job to those machines." And I'm like, holy crap, what just happened? So then my son and I come through. We went back to Mexico because I had a feeling traveling wasn't going to be easy. I didn't know how I knew, but I knew it. And we're coming back, and again I said, we're not going to be going through that machine. And they're like, no problem, right? Like, and I'm like, huh? What do you mean no problem? Because everybody's doing it like good little soldiers. They're just going and letting themselves be blasted. And that opened it. Well, what else don't I have to do? And, I go to the grocery store, and I just say I have an exemption. If it's super important to me, I'll call ahead and, again, ask questions and ask for assistance and ask for protection. So I'll tell the manager, if one of your customers or one of your employees takes it upon themselves to abuse me, will you assist me? And they're like, oh yes, of course. And they show up with practically rolling out the red carpet and walking me through things and setting up transactions so I can just like tap and go, special arrangements and all kinds of things. I feel like royalty in the process, but you really do have to take nothing for granted. Oh, you have to tell me that. And this is one of my favorite Tom Barnett lines is, are you really sure about that? Are you really sure I have to put a medical device on my mouth that squelches 30% of my oxygen? Are you really sure? Right? Just to be playful with it and ask questions and go back and forth and never stop asking questions. That's what kings do, right? That's how you end up with your power, and not in conflict either, because arguing, you lost. As soon as you're going to fight with them, you're the loser, especially
Yeah.
of energy and your own self-respect.
Absolutely. If you want to stay in power, ask questions. And we learned that a long time ago. Never answer questions ever. Always
Mhm.
answer with another question. Kind
Exactly.
of real basic stuff. Go
Don't
ahead.
make-
One
don't-
quick story. Oh, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I was just saying, don't make claims. And yeah, I mean, it's like you said, Beth, it's a tightrope right now to walk into these places, and it's a question of what is our priorities. We're in a, like you said, we're in a war, and sometimes in a war you can't always be like, I consider myself almost like a spy, and the spies would sometimes put the mask on to get past the sentry because they have the grander vision of winning the war. And if you're going to get caught up, just everybody has got a different perspective and a different thing of what their tolerance is. But sometimes for me to put a gator on and flip it over to get past a sentry real quick because I'm with my kids or something, and I don't want to get into the whole common law kind of debacle with these sentry gate people, is easier. But for the most part, Bear and I are very lucky because we chose to live in a place that people just aren't buying it. So there's enough of the
great.
population here that doesn't wear a mask that you can get around for the most part. Like I go to this grocery outlet chain, was in there yesterday, Bear. I never wear a mask in there. And it's funny. I see people start pulling down their masks when they see me, and then it just spreads. It like spreads across the store. And I know there are places like where you're at where it's not even the sentry guards. This is the thing we're really facing, right? It's the mass hordes. There's the people there that are just your common man that are next to you that will belittle you because they think you're evil for not wearing a mask because they're that programmed. They're in the program. They are the NPCs or whatever. So Bear and I don't have to really deal with that here, but I have compassion for someone like you, Beth, that in a place, and like if you're in the East Coast, I know, and there's pockets throughout the US and LA and stuff, San Francisco, where it's just every day you'd be constantly having to ask those questions and battle to do simple things. So then you have to decide, am I going to be completely sovereign? I live in a city, if I start growing all my own food, that's pretty hard to do right out of the gate. Like you're going to need to go get food, right? So then that is a tough situation. So then it's like, where do we draw the line in the sand? Because as Bear said, if we are meek and we bow down to the system, we're losing our sovereignty, and then cancer and all these physical issues overpower. So I think what you and Matt are doing, and what Foster Gamble said on the show last week, is maybe the most crucial thing we need to do right now as the quote unquote awake community, is explore these options of remedy for those who are in your situation where you are literally facing this every day just to find sustenance. So
I know.
it's wild.
Yeah, it's over the top. It's really hard to believe. Never mind the cost of human relationships that I know everybody's experienced. All my best friends are new friends. Right, we found each other, and thank God. But there's been a huge vacation or evacuation in my world, and at the end of the day, that's actually a beautiful thing. I have no regrets whatsoever, except some bad behavior at times where I wasn't in a really good state of honor. But we are meant to find our people. This has been extremely polarizing, and it's caused a lot more people to show their true colors, who they are, to risk authenticity. It's like, if not now, when are we going to do this? Putting it off, and the work is now. I was messaging with Mark Batelik, who's going to be on our summit last night, and he's booking for a 1 a.m. interview with us in his time. And I went, "Oh my, that's such dedication." And he said, "There's a lot of work to be done." So that's where people are at right now. I feel incredibly fortunate to be at the apex of the King Heroes. Right, it's no mistake or coincidence that I started collecting King Hero stories and interviews and getting to know the strong men in the world, because it seemed like they were gone. Right. I grew up throughout feminism. I was completely brainwashed by feminism. I figured that any problem in the world was a result of patriarchy and men's psyche. And I believed in the whole toxic masculinity stuff. And it actually wasn't really until my dad died that I came face to face with that masculine archetype that I write about a lot in my book, by the way, just the weaving of the masculine and feminine, how they work so beautifully together as like a kind of DNA strand, if that's not a psyop. I don't know if it is. So, I just all of a sudden woke up to, it's nothing to do with the masculine being toxic. It is we don't have a patriarchy. We have a psychopath archy. And that comes in now, unfortunately, 29 genders and all kinds of crazy stuff that has nothing to do with reality or nature. And then moving forward in that world, I just come back to that razor's edge of being true to myself, speaking from who I am, not like a loose cannon rebel without a cause, but in a very strategic way, strategically to certain people, gathering allies, rather than always going out looking for something. What I need, it's all about offering. This is the thing about purpose. I had somebody recently message me, and it's becoming more frequent that people will message, I'm in crisis, can you help me? And it's like, no, actually, I'm sorry, I can't. And then can you turn it around? And if you're seeking community, what is it that you have to offer? What can you go to community with that they can receive and make good on, and it will make you part of the fabric of a community? Right? If you're just running like a chicken looking for someone to put your head on or whatever it is, it's first of all, it's really super repelling, the energy. Somebody's coming at you with a truck of fear. And I know from a lot of experience, this is the nurturer archetype that I write about as well, is that, when you fill an empty cup, you make it more empty. Right? When people are operating from an empty place, then anything that they fill, it just creates more of a void, more of a need, and convincing of that you don't have anything of value to offer. So that's why we're all committed. We are all absolutely contracted in what seems to be a legal way, right? We don't get out of this, to give of our gifts, and it doesn't matter what scale or what kind of whether you create a movement or a business or how you function through your purpose. Of course, it's always a matter of choice. That's the big kicker. This is the Saboteur archetype, by the way, that is one of the primal archetypes that I'm teaching about right now, and it will be my second book, called I Did It. And the Saboteur, it is the awareness that we all have the free will. We all have to do this. Even the Bible is very much confirming that each one is going to have to come to their own salvation. It cannot be done for you. It's not like Noah gathering all the people for the ark, and he goes off and started a new humanity. We each one have to do it, and to see that the power of free will is there. It's not just a little bit. I was weeping and crying to God one day, and because some new restrictions had come, and it was very dark here. And I'm praying to God, please, for an intervention of some kind. Can you just come and strike the bad guys down or whatever it is? And I hear this, Beth, I gave you the miracle. It's called free will. Just use it. You've got it. All that power that you think you don't have, I gave it all to you, not just a little sliver, the whole thing. Right? So we haven't woken up to, I won't claim to have woken up to it, but I have created miracles in my life. I have turned things, starting with saving my life from cancer and many things along the way towards, having a child and repairing my relationship with my child also was a miracle of doing this work, and daily miracles I see in other people's lives of clients and students. I now train people as coaches to work with the archetypes to help them to use the hero's journey and the the basic programming AI stuff that we find inside ourselves, how to actually help others. Because to me, that at the end of the day is it's our best chance. It is the thing that we need to do. Now, whether I live or die during this experience, that has become kind of irrelevant. I'm not fighting for my life anymore. And I did realize that 20 years ago. I'm fighting for my soul. Right. So that's the thing worth protecting. And you make a lot of different kind of decisions from there, rather than protecting the flesh and bones at all cost.
Yeah. And, I get inquiries all the time. People are saying, well, where should I go? Where should I move? What should I do? And it's all predicated on that. Where's the safe place? And, I just say, I don't think there's any safe place. I'm where I'm at because I'm supposed to be here. If I had a clear message that I was supposed to be living in San Francisco, I'd live in San Francisco. I'm glad that wasn't my message, but you have to be where you're supposed to be. And the greatest thing I think a lot of us are figuring out now is the way the universe works. It's about giving. That's all it is giving. You're having an amazing adventure because you're giving. You're passing on what you've learned. And it's a matter of helping people along the way, just giving, doing what you're supposed to do. We've got our own project here, and it's amazing lately because we're just doing what we're doing, whether or not anybody shows up or not, where it's just what we're supposed to do. And we get calls all the time, people showing up and saying, hey, can we come by? I've got building skills. I've got gardening skills. I know biogeometry. Everyone's just coming with the attitude of that. And the other thing I think that we really have to understand is behind the veils, there's a hierarchy of intelligence, we'll say, and they need to be invited in. And, the power that you wield from that side of the veil is tremendous, but they can't interfere. So the more of us that align with just giving and reclaiming our sovereignty, then, we are an open conduit. We've opened a door for that to come in. That's our only job. And so I don't wring my hands at all with what's going on in Canada, what's going on here, because I just have a real strong hunch that there's a wild card that hasn't been played yet. And, as we have all this so-called exposure of what the predators of the planet are doing, we're also having an exposure of all the, how the universe really works. It's about resonance. And, how is it that we all found each other and our circles keep widening, and all these circles are just amazingly brilliant, talented, and, heroic people in my book. So that's the real exposure. And it's going to be exponentially accelerating to the point where the predator class is not going to be able to keep up with us. In fact, they've already lost their grip. So just like, we talk about how maybe we had our little adventures with our own bodies and had to, tap in a little bit differently. That's what we need to do now. We need to translate that into the larger context, say, okay, I get it. Here we are. So, any other things you'd like to address or cover, or anything more about your work here?
Yeah, I'm definitely passionate about helping people find their own blueprint. And I know it's actually fairly common. It's almost a cliche. They say, you come and find your sacred purpose. But we've been, one of the big lies that we've been told, and it shows up in every kind of cultural institution out there, and then very much inside here as well, is the fracturing of consciousness, the compartmentalization of consciousness that you see in education, right? So, or in medicine, where maybe you might do a PhD on an enzyme, and have a complete blind spot to how that actually shows up as a whole experience. Same professionally, is that people that have multiple passions and talents and skills and interests are always told and feel it to be true that they need to pick one thing and focus. Otherwise, they feel scattered, that they're going in every direction. So there's not an area of life that hasn't been cut up into little pieces. The psyche is the same. And how do they do that? I know you guys know, but it's through trauma, right? And right out of the gate, the average normal birth, intensely traumatizing, left you with the biggest wound ever, that you've been ripped out of your mom, and untimely and drugged and slapped and put off on your own and made to cry out. It's endless, right? In the even just the first days, never mind a normal life that's traumatic, and never mind trauma-based mind control of the fear propaganda that comes at us all the time. So most people have an experience of a very fractured consciousness, where part of you isn't aware of the other part of you, right? So you get low and you feel like you've always been low, and you get up there, and you're not aware of being able to go and kind of assist that low part while you're in a high energy. There's no integration whatsoever. So this is something that I feel very passionate about, is like, say, in a professional context, if someone feels like they have to focus, it's like, yes, you have to focus on you. And you are in fact made up of all of this whole variety. You weren't given that, or imbued with all of these interests and skills, and having trained yourself just by accident. So, I used to joke, is like, what do you want me to cut off, my arm or my leg? It's all important to me. But the difference is that, while you're all split up, you'll feel like your direction is going in every direction out. It's very depleting. That was part of how I got sick with cancer. I had my hands out in so many things at one time. And then the experience taught me to turn it around, to have all of this beautiful variety of experiences that I want to have on this earth, but have the arrows pointing in all to me, and who I am, what my purpose is. Right? Rumi said, "There's one thing in this world you must never forget to do," and he's pointing towards purpose. Now, it's poetry. It's not this literal. Oh, you're meant to be a festival organizer, so you can bring XYZ together. It's not like that. Maybe organizing a festival as you guys are is, or gathering as you guys are, is how you express through purpose in June or July, whenever it is, and then it's going to mold into some other beautiful creation, and your gardens, and it's all part of it. But by dissolving the inner divide, and this is the work of the alchemist archetype, which is the last archetype of the hero's journey that I write about in my book called Journey. And so that's where you begin to do that very deep inner healing work. You're no longer in a crisis. You're not trying to save your life. You've managed your life to a certain degree, and you can go and catch those fine points, and even identify what a split feels like. Very subtle, right? People who've been through. I've actually worked with clients who've been through trauma-based mind control. Unfortunately, it's not something I don't hang my shingle out, but they find me for some reason, feel like I can help them. Often related to business, but not exclusively, by the way. I help a lot of people that are not attempting to build a business, even though I feel like we're all going to be entrepreneurs soon, with the way that the job world is going and the jab world is going. But once you come to the experience of wholeness, it's really pinnacle. It's this strange, bizarro awakening that I'm one person. Aha. Right. And I'm not losing energy to that. It's just one experience. So at the end of the day, it's no, even the archetypes are an alchemical process of splitting out, taking apart, really examining, putting together in a very deliberate, chosen way, because it all came together with tacit agreement, through programming, as being being a child when you're afraid to die, and you just put a program in that seems to save you from death or whatever, disapproval or being out of control in your life. And so this experience of wholeness is something that I feel I really want to pass on, and then you can see it in people such as yourselves, who've done a lot of work, who've come to that place, who make no apology for being who they are. If you don't mind, I'll share that I'm actually going to be in an hour and a quarter on an interview on my King Heroes Journey podcast with a BC entrepreneur who decided that he's closing his business to anybody who wears a mask or gets the jab.
Wow.
And
Someone in the chat actually is related to that person, by the way.
Oh, fun. Yeah, that's really great. Since I announced it, they've been coming forward saying like, yeah, I'm their daughter.
And well,
It's
this
really,
person
really cool.
is actually a follower, is a regular subscriber of ours too.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, Flat Earth Ship Bear.
Fluttership Bear. So good. Yeah, we've been in contact as well. I want to go show up at his Earthship. So yeah, it's just fun to see how through the world of entrepreneurialism, and I mean, entrepreneurs raise their energy in a different way, even if they don't necessarily take on the deprogramming, but they got to let their fears go, and they got to get humble, because it ain't about your pride at the end of the day. It's about what works and what doesn't work, and you just keep going. It's a beautiful thing. So yeah, it's going to be a great talk. It's going to be 3 p.m. my time on the King Heroes Journey podcast. And you can start by going to bethmartens.com and just click on King Heroes Journey podcast to find that one. It's the latest one. Catherine Austin Fitz is also scheduled and on that blog. So if you click on both of those, you'll be able to get direct links to join us live for those events.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So in terms of the hero's journey, every single person has their hero's journey. And I guess the idea is you use these archetypes as I earlier said, kind of the scaffolding of your life, right? To give you some guidance and give you that little pick me up, even, right? Sometimes we need when we feel a little lost in this journey. But once I feel like it's always Thomas Campbell, of course, famous for really bringing this to the forefront in the 20th century. But the idea, I mean, Joseph Campbell, Thomas Campbell, Joseph
Okay, yeah.
Campbell. And I have the idea of being on like a raft, right, going down a river, and that's your journey. And then occasionally we hit a side eddy, or we fall off, or we come to a port where we need to, go off on a little side journey. Think Odysseus, is a great example of this with the Greek hero's journey. And it's really how each one of our lives is. And then when we're in the flow, it's like when we're in the raft and we're going through the rapids and we're not even thinking and we're just navigating everything almost like unconsciously. That's when I feel like the magic in this life happens. And when you wake up in the morning and you're excited, right? You wake up and you pop out of bed and you're like, what am I doing today? And I think being an entrepreneur is really a fantastic path towards that. Bear and I have been entrepreneurs for decades, really. Well, Dare has. I've been an entrepreneur since really out of college. And while you pay a lot of price for that because there's a lot of uncertainty, I feel like that should be the main role of most humans on this planet. That's why I'm involved with decentralization and projects like Cordal, because I feel like we've been tricked into thinking that we have to go get a job and work for somebody to have that security. But really, I think all of us need to go back to that understanding of having that vocation and experiencing that unknown and finding out what it's like to go out and make your own buck and to be your own boss. And I think I envision a future where everybody is an entrepreneur. I really feel like that is what we're meant to be here, to be divine creators and to be involved with our own commerce and doing it all ourselves and to decentralize everything. And I think that's why we're seeing the fracturing of society right now, is because we are now finally embarking on that new path in this Aquarian age where we are all connected but also separated. And the Coca-Colas of the world, the Crafts, the General Mills, which it's just mind-boggling how much they still dominate, and it's obvious why. They are going to go bye-bye, and we will enter this new age of decentralization and these cottage industries and people doing everything themselves. And the internet will play a massive role in that. I do believe that. But is that primarily I guess is a good way to kind of sum up this thing. What is your like grand vision of seeing where society can go using these techniques that you're teaching? Do you feel like what I'm saying is kind of on path for a vision of where the world can go? And what is just kind of, I don't know, what do you see happening?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I was recently reminded of it because I got in a little bit of a tizzy around, what does plan B mean when my family is on different sides of the thing and I'm here in the city in Canada and stuff like that. But and then I was challenged again. What I would have challenged a client to do is okay, what's your vision, right? What do you want? And instead of going, oh, plan B is like off the map, it's just like, no, map out your plan B, for God's sake, map it out. Let's get it rolling in the imagination. And there's a saying by one of the mentors that I've studied under, though he was never alive at the time. It was his teacher, Lester Levinson. And he says, hold what you want in mind. Now, unfortunately, most of the mind is in the unconscious, right? So it's operating by itself and it's holding a lot of what it doesn't want in mind. So I think you're bang on, Mike. I think it is really absolutely about decentralization. We're taking matters into our own hands. All of the things that we're kind of like babies. We're wards of the state going like, oh, where's my food going to come from? And where's my, education coming from and all that kind of thing. And it's time to take responsibility for that. I envision, of course, the atmosphere that you guys have in terms of gardens and permaculture and growing your own food. Like I was fantasizing to myself yesterday just what a pleasure it is to sit in a little herb patch and eat a little of this and eat a little of that and have the direct actually I've got shivers thinking about it, like just that beautiful live enzymes and nutrients and chlorophyll. I was over my humidifier yesterday because it's stupid dry here right now, and I've got oil of pine in there, some turpentine, and I'm just inhaling this, and I feel like I'm in a forest, and I can see myself walking. So it's very simple. I personally, even if I was just camping in a good climate with people I love for the rest of my life, perfect. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. I'm personally am not really here to create an empire. I will do whatever God tells me to do, and I can see things growing. It's getting a little out of control. Forgive me, please, if anybody hasn't heard from me this week, because I'm not getting to all my messages by any stretch of the imagination. And but I welcome it, and I do have some ideas about how I can get some more support in the short term. But yeah, it's about people coming together, acting like communities. We will be forced that when things get really hard, you'll need your neighbor, they'll need you, and you'll like, what do you have? What are your skills? So that's why the most important thing that you can do for yourself is to know what you have to offer, to know what the value is of the work you do, to get out of that place where you're feeling like, well, I'm not valuable. Well, that's just a big lie. We're all priceless. God wouldn't have put you here on this earth if you weren't of you know not just some value, but all of it. And then how you build value and your contribution and your purpose, because that's a work and a labor, is exactly what you said, Bear, about what do you offer, and how can you refine that, how can you it's very humbling, right? The process of learning to be a coach over the last 20 years, and the 10,000 hours that I put in. I don't know how many. I bet it's way more than that. And when you cross that threshold to like, I can help people, wow, if they're willing to be helped, if they're open, then I can do this. And I was on the phone the other day with somebody they've got their own movement and their own, this is happening more and more, and their audience and all of their teachings. And here they are on my doorstep. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is really humbling to me that they would be here looking for help. And they were so ready to take a leap and get to a new place. And they went from here to here in their energy in less than a few minutes. And, so that's how we can assist each other on an ongoing basis. We don't have to recreate all of the wheels. If the wheels are created, you go and you just like, well, I've got an axle and you got a wheel, and let's work together here. So I think it's very simple. It's life itself is the biggest pleasure, right? That's one of the archetypes that I write about in Journey as well, is the hedonist. We're not here for a pleasureless life of just working our self to the bone and slaving and putting off life. It's not like that. Life is now. And there's no end to the rich abundance that we've been given by Creator. So but you got to come to terms with like what are the subtle pleasures, especially of purpose. To me, that is the most subtle and the biggest pleasure of all, that has long sustainable impact. Of course, not just in your life, but in everybody's life as well.
Yeah, I think of the
Yeah.
Japanese sword maker, or someone, the artisan, right? That who is has their life's purpose, is creating an amazing product, but also has the knowledge and understanding that with every sharpening of that sword or forging of that steel, they're getting pleasure from that because that is their divine purpose. So
Mm.
that idea of vocation is enjoyable, even and then of course, what does that tradition have? Why I love the Japanese culture so much. The traditional Japanese culture is there's this idea of spirituality and this idea of balance and yin and the yang and all of that. So it's not the more westernized work yourself to the bone, the ends justify the means. As somebody, Easy Banana Bread, said here, not enough for everyone to be an entrepreneur running a business we enjoy. We need to be doing useful and productive labor for our society. Well,
Beautiful.
productive labor for our society, that starts to sound a little Marxist, but I get what they're saying here. I get that there is a sense of quality and an understanding of morality and a sense of working together so that we have a unified goal for what is good for us, what is based on natural law. right? And the free market does a great job of kind of doing that, as long as we have a sane society. When we have an insane
Well,
society of sick people, then yeah, go ahead, Bear.
you can see in our culture in the US at the beginning of the 1900s, 95% of the population were independent entrepreneurs. And now it's exactly the opposite. There's only a very small percentage, 5% or less, that are independents.
Mhm.
And out of that employee mentality that's pervaded our society, over half of those directly or indirectly derive their income from some level of government. And isn't it interesting now that with the pandemic scam, they're trying to close down the rest of the independents? And Beth, you did a marvelous job as far as, just helping us understand how that entrepreneurship is really coincident with sovereignty. And if you look at how our culture has changed, where we were a thriving country, and in the early 1900s, not only were people independent and thriving, but they were reading books, by the great minds like Steiner, and they're exploring all these different types of, kind of natural medicine, everything. That was the norm. And again, as we moved into more this socialized sort of mindset, now nobody even hears about these great minds anymore, let alone studies them. And I can't really conceive of putting my livelihood in the hands of somebody else, an employer. I much more, maybe I'm a control freak, but I much more trust myself. And the only bad experiences I've had in the past financially is when I place, my livelihood or something in somebody else's hands. So it just goes back to that place where learning how to trust yourself. But of course, that really means trusting your source. And I think we're, really all headed in that direction. A lot of us realize this lifetime is tying up a lot of loose ends. That's why, we are clearly in the age of transmutation. You brought up alchemy, in the Enneagram, that 9-point is the mediator. It's that, individual that has been through the full circle and now can relate to every single archetype. You understand how they're all part of a whole. That's why some of us are sharing these common beliefs, why we're all finding each other. And so great to have you here, Beth. And I can't wait to be on your show, in a couple of weeks or so, huh?
Yeah, May 27th, that's going to come up. So yeah, I'm super excited. I wanted to hear from you on specifically the way that the jab is influencing not just the people getting it, but the greater community around. So I have a lot of respect for your work, and I can hear you and I can understand you, and really resonate with your opinion. So yeah, super excited to host you there.
Fun.
Mhm.
Well, what a wonderful talk. Well, May 27th, though, that's going to be a busy day. That's when I'm on the Greater Reset, talking about Chordal. And then also we're working on having, I think we're going to work on having a pre-recorded show, because that is a Thursday Alpha Cast, Bear. But we're talking about having hopefully the mayor from Nevada City, right? And a business owner who has never closed down. And those are the kind of stories we really need to focus on more, is those entrepreneurs who are actually like the restaurant owners who aren't bowing down to the state, aren't bowing down to the corporate superstructure, and look to those people as, the model for understanding sovereignty by doing commerce in the right way, because they're still there. And that's really powerful. So, Beth, thanks so much. This has been a wonderful talk. And please, do you have your book there again? If you could hold
I
up your
do.
book could you hold up your
Yeah.
book again for everybody to
Yeah.
see? You can get this on bethmartens.com. And wonderful, wonderful information that I think is super empowering, and something everybody needs to remind themselves of, is that we are all our heroes in our own lives.
Mhm.
And what better way to give yourself momentum towards a brighter present right now than understanding that? It's empowering.
Mhm. Mhm.
something that I talk about a lot on the show, actually. Like, be your own hero, get out there and enjoy your life. I know things are always crazy.
Mhm.
Like, things are always going to be crazy in this realm. That's why we come here. So we were saying before the show, like, this really is an opt-in slavery. We were joking around. We were making an analogy between the stupid Apple upgrades that we are always being forced to choose with on our OS systems and stuff if you're an Apple owner. And I'm like, that is really how this reality is. It's like, do we want to go with this quote unquote new great reset upgrade, or do we want to do our own? We opt in, we decide. So let's decide what's best for each and every individual's hero's journey here. And it's a powerful tool. It's a grounding every day to do that. So thank you so much, Beth. You are a wonderful human being, and we're so happy to know you. And I'm very happy to hear you're working with Matt Belair, who is a friend of Bear and I's and mine. And
that's how I met you guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thanks to Matt. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool. So everybody, go to bethmartens.com. I hope you enjoyed listening to or watching the show. Thanks to everybody in the chat. The D Live chat was lively. For those on YouTube, we are in D Live. We're on YouTube too, but if you can, come over to D Live. It's better. We're trying not to support the Googles of the world. And
is it okay if I share one quick thing?
Go ahead.
Just want to let people know, and I think it's already happening, but there are two quizzes at my website, and just to let you know the difference between them, they are actually both based on the 8 archetypes that I write about in this map of archetypes to find lost purpose in a sea of meaninglessness. And so the Merpreneur's journey is those archetypes are generally for a woman who is interested in being valued for her purpose. Not to say that a man couldn't do it, but you might not relate to the questions as much. And then there's the King Hero's journey archetypes, which is more about the trials and tribulations of surviving, but it's the identical archetypes. So you can choose one or the other. Quite often men do end up doing both, and women do the King Hero one too, because of course we have both the masculine and feminine in us as well. So that's fine if you want to see the difference, but just so you don't get confused, I'm still working out how to funnel traffic when it comes to my website. But in 10 minutes, you can find out where you are on the path of purpose. And that's what happened to me. I got a little bit of insight in one archetype, and I saved my life that way. So people have been able to have breakthroughs. And I do have a Telegram channel as well. So if you'd like to join me there, it's called King Hero Zone. It is for King Heroes. You guys are too busy. I was going to add you, and I'm like, oh, no, that'll drive you crazy. But of course, you're very welcome. And for people who are comforted by King Heroes, that's me. And also those King Heroes in the making. You want to do brave stuff, but you're not necessarily quite there yet. And there is a course called Primal Power, which I feel is extremely timely right now for the truth community. I'm just running my second round of it. I'm extremely affirmed it will definitely be my next book. And following this, I'm going to put it out because it's all recordings and handouts and videos and all that kind of thing. So people will be able to take it without the live component, even though that's good. So I just wanted to make sure to mention those things, if that's all right.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll put those links in the show notes beneath the podcast here and on the website, on our website. So people can easily find that. And that's great. Telegram seems to be the place right now. And, relating this to my brain with decentralized systems and how nodes connect to create the overall network. Well, yeah, each node needs to be strong. We all need to be a strong node for the network to be healthy. So it's important to go do that quiz if you have any question about what your purpose is, so that you can be a valuable member in this community we are building here. Because without that, it'll collapse. So powerful work, Beth. Thank you so much. Bear Lando, any parting words for Beth or our community?
Just Beth, please add me to your Telegram group.
Oh, for sure. I will. Absolutely. I'll do that right now.
And thank you.
Yeah, it's been a thrill to be here. Honestly, I've been watching you guys for a while, and I knew I could relate. The vibe was there. And then it was so exciting that Matt was connected. And then Anarchapulco came along. So all these little threads lead together. It's all magic. It's all synchronicity. And that is what happens when you live a life that's in alignment with your own true purpose, that all kinds of things can happen that otherwise may never have come together in a beautiful way. So God bless you guys. And thanks again for sharing your audience with me.
God bless you, Beth, and good luck with your Catherine Ostafitz interview. We're very
Thank you.
excited about that, and we'll be tuning in. Will that be live or is that recorded?
It's live. Yeah. Tomorrow at
Okay.
1 p.m. Central. I guess that's 11 a.m. in the Pacific.
Wonderful. Okay, guys, tomorrow, catch that live on Beth's channel with Catherine Austin Fitz. I'm sure that is going to be an amazing stream. Very exciting. And everybody, if you enjoyed this, please give us a thumbs up, share with your friends and family, get this information out. We really appreciate you. You can find us at alphavedic.com, all the information there. And once again, Music and Sky is coming up before you know it, musicandsky.com. We've got Marty Leeds, Lena Poo, Laura Bolton, Derek Bros, David Rodriguez, Dr. Edith Bunto Chan, Brian Hoyer, Dr. Melissa Sell, and her partner, Dr. Stephen Ravenstag. Eric Casano will be doing another 2-hour holotropic breath work. We have Paul Enslaved there, who, Bear, I'm reaching out to hopefully get on AlphaCast ASAP. Beth, if you haven't checked out Paul's videos, if you haven't heard of this guy, Paul Enslaved, because you're a common law kind of fan, he's on the boots on the ground doing the work, recording himself, like having interactions with police and public officials and educating them on the difference between lawful and legal in a way that is absolutely brilliant. And he is a great example of the hero's journey, because he, was lost and I think was in prison, and he was an ex-con, and he found his way and he discovered common law, and it's become his life's passion, and he's studied it and he knows it, and he's coming from a place of divine kind of recognition of what his path is now here, is his journey and his goal, and it's really powerful. And Bear, I shared you a video that went viral of his, and it's just a kick.
He's awesome.
Man, he's amazing. So we're having him come out to do a talk, and our friend Justin Franson will be there again. I mean, so our family, like you said, our community is going to be there. It's going to be just an amazing time, and we do have some big surprises coming too. Some other names that we're working on. And some Canadians, even maybe Matt Belair, maybe even if we can have our friend smuggle him over the border. We're working on it. So lots of fun stuff happening.
Pick me. I'll come.
Yeah, I think you're in his neck of the woods too. Are you kind of?
Not even close. Not even close.
Oh, you're in Manitoba.
No. Yeah. Okay, Where is the gathering again? What part of the U.S.?
The gathering is in a secret location in the Western Sierras, kind of by Yosemite.
Okay.
So
cool.
We're gonna have to blindfold you when we take you in.
Yeah, I'm closer than Matt is. So
you are.
Yeah.
So I was joking around, that it's not the Mexican border anymore that's going to be the hotbed for smuggling. It's going to be the Canadian border.
I know.
So
I know.
Kind of ironic, right?
I know. I blew the border once to go to New York this last summer when Adrian Kaufman, who I know you know, and
Andy's
Ballerson
right
and all
now
great folks are there.
So Andy's 50-50. We haven't officially announced him, but he is wants to come and would be a keynote speaker, as well as Amanda Vollmer, if you're familiar with her work.
Of course. She's on our law summit, by the way. Yeah.
Okay, so she's part of the smuggling that will be going down, hopefully, if we can figure this out. So, so anyways, so many beautiful Canadians up there doing amazing work, and we want to get them to this event. So, we'll see what we can do. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for joining us today, and get out there, get outside, get your hands dirty, go grow something, go on a hike. Mother Nature is always the best teacher, and we love you, and we will see you next week. Cheers.